So welcome to the AI Meetup. We're going to be doing a bit of open discussion. I had some topics I wanted to cover from today, mostly around context engineering and modern CLI tools that we're using for data development. If anybody else has any other topics they'd like to raise or talk about, I'd love to hear from you, especially in terms of, like Sunny here is going to be talking about how he's utilizing context summarization to search contexts that are bigger than the token limit for the window, which I think is interesting. I also am extremely interested in like RAG and other types of search, if anybody has any anecdotes they'd like to share around that. So firstly, does anybody want to open and share anything that they've been recently working on? Shoot.
So my nonprofit working on deploying out a open source backend network, and so we've been leveraging Gemini for deploying out pull requests for our switch code updates, but also integrating that into Docker containers. So right now we have a workflow to where when somebody conducts a pull request, it pulls it into an AI agent job that then is structured to where like one would be like a code reviewer, one is like more of like checking for any sort of legal compliance, making sure we're not like stealing code from somebody else's GitHub repository that's maybe copyrighted or restricted. And then it goes out and builds out the Docker files and then does the deployments automatically all through just deployed AI agents. It works great.
This is horrible.
I'm concerned about my own jobs, but overall, AI technology has been really effective in that aspect.
Yeah. So when you're looking at this CI/CD pipeline and you're doing a code review, are you doing anything? It sounds like more like you're doing a scrape for legal compliance. Are you doing any other types of code review at that stage, or just?
That's got it working. That's good.
Yeah, so it's more like compliance. We're not doing anything for like HIPAA or that realm because it's all open source, but it's ensuring that everything's formatted correctly, that there's proper comments, but we're also deploying .md files for documentation purposes, and also as the agents go through the code, when the agents goes and looks at it again, it's reviewing those previous .md files to then determine what's been done in the past, and so then you don't have as many hallucinations in the code development. But there's like a lot more aspects to it, so we're leveraging Microsoft Windows Server, but it's using the Linux component to be able to then pull it into like Ubuntu and compile it. Yeah.
Dude, WSL has anyone else, show of hands, who's using WSL right now in their development? 1, 2, can we keep on? I'm curious actually. 1, 2, 3? Only 3. So okay, just a heads up to everyone out there. If you are on the Windows box, please go install WSL right now. It takes 5 minutes, and then it makes running Claude easy, it makes everything easy, it always works. It's bar none the best tool I've ever touched. I'm in love with it.
And we...
Huh? We're just installing. Well, I like to do this thing called play video games, and
But it's great in Visual Studio. That's what I used for my environment, and everything integrates well. We have GitHub Copilot, and then we have a bunch of actions on GitHub. So, love AI and the backend environment. I wish I had it many years ago.
What are you hosting your Docker? I assume you're not running them locally. You're probably cloud Docker containers.
We use a local vendor, SharkTech, for our public cloud environments. We recently just migrated off of Azure, just because.
That's interesting. Why did you get off Azure? Just pricing?
Well, the pricing's better with SharkTech. They're actually a local private and public cloud host provider. They have like their own data center, and they're really local. The CEO and the staff there are really responsive, and they're cheaper.
Why don't you give me the contact information on them later, and
Definitely.
Get them in, and they can talk about maybe some strategies of use. Are you
Sure.
ready to do your
Yeah.
demo?
Yep.
All right, cool. Thank you for sharing. Very interesting. Can we get a round of applause? Very good.
All right, cool. So basically I'm going to show 2 quick demos. Basically it's my contention that everything will have a voice interface, so these are 2 demos. The first demo is about showing something within the context window, so it goes by pretty quickly. And then the second demo will be showing how to get data that's more than a context window. So the context window, for those who don't know, is how much data you can put in the prompt. Now I'm using an open source LLM, with ChatGPT or even Grok, you can get a lot, but I want my own LLM, I want my own private data, you know what I mean? So I got my own private LLM running, and I got my own data, so I can work as a AI consultant, because this actually delivers more tokens per second than ChatGPT or Grok. So that's the other cool neat. So I also do software for a company here called JewelFit. They do like custom gyms, but one of the products I'm going to be launching to help a lot of startups is the AI sales assistant. And the AI sales assistant, when you're going to the landing page and you're trying to wonder, is this product for me? I don't know. It'd be nice if you can just talk to somebody, right? But to do that, you have to get conversion of the audio like sub 2 seconds, which is really important for a natural conversation. So I was able to figure out how to get went through like a bunch of AI models, and got something faster than even ChatGPT, and that's always the goal, right? So we're going to talk about JewelFit, so I'll say like, tell me about the gym, and I hit submit. Every time you do a demo. Just look at the server real quick. Am I connected to the internet?
While it's processing that, can you specify whether or not you're using just an API call, or if you've done any of your own?
No, this is going to my server. I don't know if there's...
JewelFit delivers 15-minute, twice weekly strength sessions on 5 AI-controlled machines that auto-set resistance. Free 2,500 lb facial recognition.
Sure.
Guided by a certified professional trainer with real-time force tracking and post-workout analytics.
And what machines do they use? Now I'm doing audio transcription on my own server.
They use 5
See,
AI-controlled machines
that's how it
that
is.
perform the 5 compound movements. Compound row, pull down, chest press, overhead press, and leg press.
So now you can imagine, like on every landing page, this is going to happen, right? You just be like, hey, I do this in my life. How does your product help with me? And then the LLM will connect the dots. So the key thing is you want about 2 or 3 sentences. You want it quick, so it's conversational, and you want it sub-second, just like I showed you, that quick, that fast. So there's not much info to if I say, tell me. I had to speak it. Actually, it's always easier, right? Tell me more about the gym.
JewelFit's gym offers 50-minute, twice weekly sessions on 5 AI-controlled machines.
I just got some data from...
Chest press, overhead press, and leg
But
press.
you can imagine you can do a lot more detailed stuff once you have a list. The last time I did a demo of Zoom. So this demo is showing how fast I can audio transcribe, go to the LLM, convert 10 plus seconds, 15 seconds of audio, all under sub 2 seconds, which is really conversational. So the second demo is going to be the book. There's a recent book that came out. I don't know if I should be showing this publicly, but the recent book came out.
Real quick, Sonny, before you continue,
Yeah.
I have some specific questions about that.
Sure.
One, does the location of the server and the location of the client make a difference in this case? Because you're reaching out to this model that's quite fast in terms of latency, but I don't think you can deliver an AI model over like a CDN, for example, not easily, not currently. So is latency, and like, would you have to deploy this in a bunch of regions for it to be
I don't think
efficient?
so. I don't think so, because I tested models running in Japan.
And you didn't notice a latency?
No.
Okay.
It's really about the tokens per second. And that's really what it's about. Like, I had to go through so many GPUs, so many different models. I didn't even know if this would exist, right? It's kind of like the story of like OpenAI. I don't know if you know that story, but they spent like $100 million, and like Elon Musk left. I still don't know what quite happened, but they didn't know how many parameters it was going to be till it was actually usable. And they came out with like 1 million parameters, and little did they know they needed 175 billion. But like, it's just one of those things. So I've been like just shooting in the dark, and you kind of have this thought, you're like, well, ChatGPT has an API. Why are you trying to roll anything, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, nope, I found a way to beat them. And that's always exciting.
And then the second question I have is cost. Like, how much are you spending to keep this up? How many requests? Like, what are you paying per 1,000 requests? Like,
So I got it down to $500 a month.
Okay.
And that can process, and when you're doing sub 2 seconds, you can process so much more. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be like offering a much more better looking, but an AI chatbot that speaks, that has context reference, and I'm probably going to launch it for like $100 a month. But I did the math. I would
Clear in your financial models.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
And then one final question. Do you have actually?
I want to piggyback off of one of your questions. I don't need the mic.
Yeah.
If you can hear me all right.
Well, it has to be recorded, that's why.
Yeah, it's for the recording.
So you made a comment about not being able to use a CDN. Is that an option? Could you use something like Cloudflare's Workers or
No.
Fastly's?
CDNs are for like assets. Like you can use this. Like I told him. Like I was running one off Japan because they have these GPUs are so expensive. You have to sometimes you have to rent them and things like that. And even like typically on AWS, you can rent an instance, stop it, and then restart it. They don't even do that because these are such in demand. The second you stop it, they rent out the GPUs, and then you got to download your file. So I became an expert because every time I start a new instance, I have to reinstall everything. So I'm an expert in getting everything reinstalled, get my 3 models working.
Because the spool up time is just as expensive as the request time, probably. So you don't want it going cold. You really get penalized if you're letting those instances go cold.
That's why I was thinking something like Fastly's Edge Compute Network, where you can spin up stuff.
I don't think they have GPUs. I think the problem is they just aren't going to have enough.
Yeah, I'm just going to bite the bullet and pay the 500, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And just have it up at all times, because every time I stop it, I save a couple bucks, but then I spend a half hour resetting everything up, and I haven't really, at some point I would like to get everything contained in a Docker file so I could just load up that Docker file and then, have it automated, but
Wait, no,
you know what I mean?
you're manually installing all the required dependencies at boot time?
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, exactly. And figuring that out, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, so, sure.
All right, so to make this really simple for some of us non-techie folks.
Sure.
Is it something where it's a shared hosting type of scenario to where you can have multiple clients on one instance, or?
Basically, so what it is to do the type of text processing that Sunny wants to do. He said, okay, I need a monster GPU, what you put in your computer to do gaming, right? And that's so that he can run his own model to process the text faster than the APIs are doing. Because normally what you're doing, there's just some location on the internet, and you just shoot them a request, and they give you everything back, and you don't do anything, right? That's how most endpoints work. When you talk to GPT, they have an API. But Sunny doesn't want to do that. He says, I want to build my own thing and run it. So you gotta provision something to run the thing, right? And when you're provisioning it, what you get in that instance where you're trying to run stuff varies, and you can set up different things. And what we were discussing was the horsepower and availability of those instances and where they're being put on the cloud. So the problem.
No, I get that. I guess the question I'm getting to is so you say it's $500 to run.
Yeah.
So is that, I'm just saying, is that $500 be able to be spread across multiple clients, or is that just going to be?
That's the thing, because each request is a sub-second. You're not opening a session. I think I get what you're saying, because typically in an LLM, you can open a session, have a conversation, right? I don't do that. I just open and close. And because it's sub-second, so yeah, you could have, that's what I thought about. Let's say you had 2 chatbots, right? Mm-hmm. And 2 people are having conversations. They could oscillate because the response is just so quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to further understand your question, there's a bit of conflation of terms here in terms of client as a single client on a machine requesting from an API, and then there's client as business clients.
I was thinking business client.
Okay,
so I'm thinking how much would it cost for a small business to actually put this on a landing page? Is it going to be, would it need to be more than $500 plus, the cost plus margin?
I think he probably could host maybe 3 to 5 clients on his $500 a month distribution before he'd run out of capacity, especially if they were local to the Western region. I'm sure that would be an issue. There'd probably be a request limit in the order of I don't know, you'd probably only get 1,000 requests a week or 3,000 requests a week before he'd have to throttle you. Because at that point, if someone's sitting there and just spamming it, he's going to run out of capacity. But
or have some sort of tiered pricing to where if you went over, you would bump up to the next tier or something.
I think it could last a lot. When you talk about sub-second, that's the cost for every message. So that's the key thing, is figuring out what the product is. And that's what makes this a little bit different than a lot of LLMs. As you know, with ChatGPT, you get a bunch of text. But when you're having a conversation, you really only want 2 or 3 sentences. So the fact that it's 2 or 3 sentences, auto-converted, sub 2 seconds, now you just do the math.
Yeah.
How many seconds in a day?
He has X capacity pretty much.
Sure,
And then
yeah.
until his capacity's filled up, the worst case scenario would be you're getting so many requests. So if you had, I think you'd have to have
But I already figured out a way to get 2 LLMs running.
Yeah.
So that takes care of everything.
How are you managing all of your context windows for all of the various conversations? Or what data store are you using to manage
No, I've rolled everything my own. So I'm creating my own AI platform to manage and all that stuff.
Just
Python
what are you using
layer.
for the storage? Are you storing it all in that same instance?
Yeah, storing it all. Yeah.
Okay,
exactly,
so just a local data store.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just from the aspect of let's say a small business was going to install something like this, you could technically use a CDN and in-memory tables for, let's say if it's a customer service AI application, it doesn't make sense to always do a query against your GPU resources all the time, especially when the answers to the questions are always going to be the same. So if a small business was going to deploy something like this, you would definitely want to look at some type of CDN distributed cache, especially if it's
You can use RAG to do that really
yeah.
effectively too. You could take you could categorize every single question that the users ever did, and then give them all a RAG score, and then just return the response that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you save the MP3 files. Yeah.
And you could use lazy search or add in numbers based on specific responses on weighted values and stuff. There's a lot of ways to go about it without having to destroy your budget and waste your tokens per se.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So this second demo is about, because there's really, in my opinion, 3 types of queries. The first, which I showed you, is hey, I got a question, but for the context reference, it fits in the window. I get up to 32,000 tokens context window, which is a lot of data. I think 5,000 for my 20 billion parameters is good enough. A token's about 3/4 of a word, so you can imagine 5,000 tokens is a lot of data. You can write many paragraphs about your business, and it would just know everything about your business, right? Or you can put in your schedule in there, 100+ reservations, and then people can ask, hey, or do you have this available, right? So that's good for that. But then you have 2 other kinds. So now you got I need to reference data, but it doesn't fit into 1 or 2 context windows. So I need to reference that. So there's 2 kinds of those. Those are overlapping domains and non-overlapping domains. So I'll give an example of each. Let's say you want to talk about Harry Potter. There's a bunch of text in the Harry Potter anthropology. I'm pretty sure there's many books. I haven't really read it, but so you're asking about Harry Potter, and that's an overlapping domain because Harry Potter, or the question that you're asking, could be on each page. So there's really no way around the fact that you kind of need to create a system of summarization or somehow to loop to get true context. Now they do have RAG systems, they do have embeddings, things like that. I don't really prefer those. I'd rather wait longer to have higher accuracy, because what I was thinking about is there's a lot of universities out there and they're researching stuff. They have thousands of documents. They would love to reference those things. But unfortunately in those contexts, to get true context window, true intelligent understanding about the data, you kind of need to read the summaries to see if that chapter or that part of the book, actually answers that question. The other one, which I'm going to do after this, as a project, not right here, is when you have non-overlapping domains. So an example of this would be an HVAC repair guide. And you say, hey, I got this tool, this part's not working, let's just say a car, 98 Mitsubishi Eclipse, the brake pads aren't working. So it doesn't need to scan the whole thing because it knows, this chapter over here will answer that question, everything about brake pads. So that'll be happening a lot faster and as instant, because you would now have a chapter index, and most likely the final answer won't require more than 5,000 tokens. But this is an example of a book. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do this publicly, but I'm going to do it anyways. There's a Vegas book that recently came out. It's really neat. They have I didn't buy the actual book. The real book is $500. It's this big. It's a bunch of beautiful photos. It's about the last 125 years in Vegas. But I did buy the hard copy, and with that they gave me an EPUB. And with that, I converted that to PDF, and I was okay, great. I got 85 pages worth of data, and I just want to ask about the book. I'm pretty sure we've all had that feeling when you have a whole book and I don't want to read the whole thing, I just want to ask it questions, you know what I mean? So somebody give me a decade.
80s.
80s, okay. Tell me about the 1980s. So this is going to take slightly a couple more seconds because it's going through the summaries.
The 1980s in Las Vegas saw stagnation after the MGM Grand Fire, with no new resorts built for nearly a decade. The era was marked by nostalgia, traditional entertainment, and the looming need for transformation before the 1990s boom.
And what was the first casino after the MGM Grand Fire?
The first
This is
casino
actually not bad.
after the MGM Grand Fire was the Mirage, which opened on November 22nd, 1989.
Anybody else have a general question about Vegas in the last 100 years?
Why is the historic West Side called the historic West Side?
I'm not sure if I'll know, but we'll see. Why is the West Side or the historical West Side called the historical West Side? But this actually could be a good test because it'll say like, oh, we may not know or something like that.
Or it'll make something up.
Nah, it won't make anything up.
The historical West Side is called so due to its rich past, marked by early.
Oh, I guess it did. See, I didn't even know that.
and significant developments like the railroad, which transformed it into a vital hub in Las Vegas's history.
Is that correct? I don't even know.
I don't know, I didn't read the book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't even know that existed. I never knew that term. You know what I mean? Like, tell me about Frank Sinatra. See, the audio transcription is so fast. Running your own models is faster. It's awesome.
Frank Sinatra, born in 1915, was a legendary singer and entertainer who significantly shaped Las Vegas's identity from the 1940s to the 1960s, known for his powerful voice and charismatic performances at the Sands and later Caesar's Palace.
Yeah, the other thing is like, you know, voice is so important. We could text this to you, but you're not going to understand until you hear a human voice. And that's the other part. So, you know, it turns out 2 or 3 sentences with human voice is much better to understand a concept than reading a bunch of text with no human voice. You know what I mean? And I think this is critical for every startup landing page. And as soon as they sign up, okay, great, how do I use your app? Now this is going to be the tutorial assistant and customer support. And I think that's really, really neat. So, you know, anyways.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, can we get a round of applause for Sonny?
Auto acceptance.
Okay.
What kind of pricing model do you envision for?
It's going to be $100 to start. So you're going to get AI sales assistant and tutorial support.
Very cool. I don't know how much time we have left. What time is it?
How do you compete with your competitors?
You want to give him the mic?
How do you compete with your competitors?
It turns out that there really isn't many competitors. There's a lot of people who do text. There's nobody who really does voice, and nobody does voice well, and nobody does it that fast. I spent the weekend.
Okay, does it
There's just nobody that exists.
existing platforms like Go High Level, GPT?
Yeah, the key thing with Go High Level, that's a great question, is that they are prompted scripts. They don't go to the LLM directly. They don't manage that. And so the problem is you're not able to inject custom data into the software. So one of my big advantages is I'm actually a one-man app agency.
That
So
you
whenever-
have the database?
Exactly. I have the data to inform the LLM. And also, it sounds funny, I guess you would say I'm a prompt engineer. I know how to talk to the LLM to really teach it and understand it. You know, I'll do a demo next time, but I don't just make this work. I have to what is the capital of Japan? Make sure it's not hack proof. And I had to sit there and ask a million questions that are not on topic to see if it can be broken, and it can't. So it's
And
pretty exciting.
what about compliance, like somebody that's in law or
Yeah, so
healthcare?
great question. So I am doing HIPAA compliance. I'll eventually be doing that in the next month or so, and that costs many $1,000s per month, or you have to spend $5,000, $10,000 on a computer, so you can host it yourself, and then you'll be HIPAA compliant. But that's what I do plan on doing that and eventually getting into medical software.
Okay. What kind of distribution do you have on this right now?
What do you mean?
How many users?
Oh, no, I just have me right now. I'm launching in probably 2 or 3 weeks. Okay. I want to do the AI sales assistant and the tutorial support, because I know there's a lot of startups, and this is a great way to communicate complex ideas.
And so this is your MVP?
Yeah, kind of, exactly, yeah. It's going to look a lot better than this. You know what I mean? It's going to look like a chat window with rich media, going to reference links and media when people ask about it. You know what I mean? That way, and book a demo, right? Because when you're on a landing page, book a demo, schedule a call, things like that. So.
Yeah, I had a question about it as well. Ironically, it touched on something I'm working on now, for my company.
Oh, cool.
So the issue is the natural language versus how to prompt it. Because the people that are going to be talking to it are more blue-collar employees that don't really interact with it that much.
Yeah.
So they may not know the fruitful way to say it to get it to do it right. So my idea was, to, with our new intranet, put a chatbot, AI chatbot on each one of the landing pages so someone can click on it and just naturally talk to it, and it'll only spit policy. But
Yeah, exactly.
But
Policy is
no
another good
rationale.
example.
So my question is, does yours also develop rationale? Like if they answer the question and say, oh, how high do I need to be to wear my fall protection? And it gives
Yeah,
them
exactly.
6 feet.
That's exactly the
But
point.
will it then, if they then ask it like, well, why has it got to be 6 feet? Is it going to try to create an answer, or is it going to say policy standard?
So this is where it gets interesting. So ChatGPT open sourced 2 models in August, and I've just been becoming an expert in both of them. There's a 20 billion and 120 billion. Initially, I went to the 120 billion, right? Because you'd always want more, right? For reference, ChatGPT launched 2022 with 175 billion parameter model. That's what they got 1 million users in 5 days. So you're like, oh, the 120 billion is within, this is pretty insane, right? This is like the iPhone being open source 2 years after it came out, which is pretty crazy, right? So I tried to run the 20 billion and I haven't been able to break it. For a single task, this is where it gets interesting. For a single task, a lot of ChatGPT says 7 and 13 billion parameters is good enough. But my 20 billion parameters is already overkill, and it's fast, and I haven't been able to break it. So my point is this, like the 120 billion and all the other bigger ones, you could say, oh, well, ChatGPT has more billions of parameters, why don't you use that API? Well, it turns out they're trying to do generic AI, and they're trying to do multi-step, but you actually don't want to do that. You actually want to manage it task by task, programmatically speaking.
I mostly want to lock it. Like I don't want it to be able to give someone rationale and then develop a strategy.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Like,
but I'll give you an example. Let's say you have an email, right? What the big companies are, what they're attempting to do is like, hey, reply to that email. But you actually don't want to do that. What you want to do is you want to make multiple trips to LLM. You want to say, okay, is this email sales, customer support? Is it spam? Oh, it's sales? Okay, now that we know it's sales, let's grab the data from the database and get the data we need to answer questions. So now you can chain. So my point is that I can chain multiple prompts to the 20 billion parameter, and it's 20 billion parameter, and it's much better than attempting one prompt at a 200 or 300 billion parameter model.
That's a very interesting.
That's a really important point.
I thought you weren't answering this question, but there's actually now I understand where you're going. I do understand. So what I was going to say is you just do context engineering, and by a process of it's almost like hypnotizing someone, like the same way you would. Like if you were trying to hypnotize someone to get them to do something, that's the same way you speak to an LLM if you're trying to get it to perform an action. In fact, they put a lot of guardrails in that have reduced the efficacy of some of these techniques. But the goal, right, is to get the LLM to only see and speak in the way that you desire. And a lot of that is just utilizing words.
Yeah, prompt engineering.
Yeah, that are very centered on those ideas, right? Like, and that's not strictly restricted to technical language. Like sometimes poetic language is effective. It's basically a flash of consciousness in the domain of text, and you're just trying to bewitch that consciousness to only see what you want it to see, right? And then you can give it very clear instructions. Sometimes it'll want to diverge from those instructions, and it's all about building a version of building a body of text that keeps it in the domain where you want it. So you're like, look, like one of my favorites is provide no unsolicited information, right? That tends to lock it down, and it won't want to do things that are outside of that domain. What Sunny was describing there was actually a really interesting different strategy that's outside of the domain of context engineering, where he's saying, look, I can make all of these subsequent requests to the model, and with each request, because he's managing the data that the models are aware of, like the context window of that data, he's saying, I'm narrowing that context, I'm narrowing that context, I'm narrowing that context. So the body of text the model is referring to and looking at, like, is so specific to the question that you're asking, so all it knows is policy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. And there's another layer to this, and I forgot to mention this part. So there's really 3 layers. The first layer is, okay, I only need so much data to fit in a context window. That's easy, right? The second layer is, I have a lot of data, and it fits outside the context window, what I kind of show you. The third layer I forgot to mention is you can train the model. And that's where it gets interesting, where if you have a lot of data, we're talking about like so much data, like thousands and thousands of rows. Exactly. Then you could actually add training, not retrain, but add training to the model, and it would know the vocabulary. So that's where I'm kind of going towards. All these big AI companies are trying to do general everything. I don't want to do that. I want to do specific, like in your example, where it becomes the best narrow domain that even ChatGPT wouldn't be able to compete because it doesn't have the domain knowledge to train the LLM on. And I think that's very exciting for every small business, because every small business has their own IP. You know.
Well, I got to get them to pay for it, so that's it's exciting in theory.
Yeah,
they got to
exactly.
also pay for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I think you can a more narrow and rational approach. I feel like Sunny is really into like developing and deploying his own stuff. I think that's just completely unnecessary for the vast majority of consumers. Just do some context engineering. Hire someone who has demonstrably made LLMs do, like, just have them do demos and show you that they know how to do that, and just type in nonsense. Ask all the questions that you want someone to, that you don't want someone to get a bad response for. Ask it about blue jeans, you know, when it shouldn't be talking about that, and see what it does. And just see if you can break it. And the more you test it, the more you're going to verify that the context engineering that was employed to the model.
I could help you with the prompt engineering. We can talk about that later. So.
But anyone, I feel like a lot of professionals, because it's such a critical skill, I think a lot of professionals have developed a really fine-tuned sense of what productive context engineering is. Because I think most development is occurring, actually I'm curious, how much of your development are you using LLMs for? Almost 100%, that's what I'm at now.
It's not a little bit for the busy work, but it's really about the ideas, because I create my own frameworks.
Yeah.
And not to sound funny, but like LLM's the first time, because I have my own code and I've debated with many other programmers about my own code, you know what I mean? And it's so weird that an AI is the first one to say, I see what you're doing, that's interesting. By the way, we can take it further like this. Yeah. So it's made my framework much faster. But when I have a lot of busy work, then I let it do that. But I still handle the high level of programming, so.
Very cool, well thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
sure.
Who are you considering for compliance and the legal aspect of making sure that your, everything is complying with local or federal regulations and like GDPR? Do you do any kind of international data transfers?
I know some people, but I reach out for consulting and, you know what I mean? And so I also ask ChatGPT as a reference. Yeah, you know what I mean? And so I do know some people who do that stuff, but I know a company that is helping me with the HIPAA compliance, which is my real goal. You know, I think we all want our own private LLM to ask personal questions and know that nobody knows what those are. You know what I mean? So, so.
Do you know anything, any like software or platforms? I'm just curious, as far as you would incorporate it into what you're doing?
Oh no, I make all my software by myself, so it's just about understanding what the guidelines are and making sure I meet them, you know, so yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
So what was your methodology for determining product market fit?
Well, it's for recording, it's for the recording.
What was your methodology for determining product market fit?
Well, I make apps, I have clients, and that's kind of where it came to. I've made some apps and I was like, I really don't want to spend an hour doing a demo. I mean, we all have to grind out with our customers, that's fine. But I was like, I really would like to have an AI. And that's really like the best way to think about making products. You don't try to invent technology and sell it. It's like a famous Steve Jobs quote. You try to invent technology around what people need, not like discover technology and then try and sell it to them. So this kind of came out to like, boy, I would really love, because I built really big enterprise apps, right? And they're amazing, but no matter what, if they're big, they're just going to take time to learn. And it would just be so awesome if you could just say, hey, how do I do this function? And then can kind of just walk you through that. And that's kind of like where I started really investigating. And I didn't know if it was going to work. And I think I last week finally achieved sub 1 second response and audio transcription. So I'm pretty happy about that. So, yeah.
Yep. Well, I don't know how much time we're supposed to go for.
Yeah, exactly, sorry.
Yeah, it's 11:40.
Sure, well.
Does anybody know how long the AI meetup's supposed to run?
12. Usually it goes till an hour.
Okay, so we can do a bit of open discussion if anybody is interested in volunteering another project that they're working on, or I can launch into some of the stuff.
So Anthropic released skills for Claude and Claude Code this week. So Anthropic released something called Skills, which is, are you familiar with using like the various, Claude MD files, right? It's kind of that on steroids. It provides a separate directory services for those, and you can include scripts and a lot of other things. So you can accomplish an awful lot without using MCPs. And it's very efficient in token usage because it only loads, finds and loads what it needs when it needs to. But I haven't got hands-on. That was today, but I'm here, so I'll have to wait till after this. So, yeah, I live in Claude Code and for development, and this is looking like it'll be probably real high value.
Yeah, it seems very interesting. That actually ties in nicely to what I've been doing with my local context engineering. So I just update the README with I have a couple of different files. Everything gets timestamped, which I think just having a leading timestamp helps you keep track of what you're doing and why. And then I have research, plan, hints, and one other one that I've forgotten. And I tell it to specifically session, of course. And then each time I'm working with Claude, I'm like, okay, go ahead and create a session.md. And one of the things is having all of those contexts that you can pull in and out. The README, or actually the Claude.md, will have a large overall file that speaks to how its understanding of all of those. And you can tell it to go investigate a specific file when you need to drag those into context. And what I've found is very often you have to kind of slap it to get it to reconsider its context. Like you have to re-init in order to get a fresh take on things. I think it can get turned around, especially in situations where it's failed several times. And I think sometimes reinstituting the context can be very successful.
Key is recognizing when it's doing that, which you develop an intuition for.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to raise this to the larger room in terms. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. One of the things that I was most curious about to the room of, I don't know, raise of hands, how many engineers do we have, like people actively developing code using LLMs? Okay. Out of everyone who's an engineer, how many of you have found auto edits to be the bane of your existence, like the auto accept? Does anyone actually use the auto accept features? You use the auto accepts. Okay, can you speak a little bit to how you've made that successful? Because for me, I find the auto accepts generally.
You're talking about tab completion?
No, I'm talking about when GPT will try to make consecutive edits, right? And there's many situations where I would absolutely love to describe a set of requirements and then go like this. I have other things to do. I don't want to stare at it. But I've found staring at it is the only solution. It will provide an edit. I look at it like this and I say, is that even halfway right? Okay, sure. And I'm doing that on every single requested edit it does. I found that if I let it make 3 consecutive edits and I am not watching it like a hawk, occasionally it will misconstrue requirements grossly. Like not even like I've clamped it into a corner and I'm very clear, like what we're going to do, we're going to write a test harness and you're going to demonstrate to me that you understand how to load this file, perform a transform to the file, and then write a unit test showing me that that transform occurred, and then that's the unit test and you're done. That's all you're doing. And it will then read my other requirements document, get confused, and start implementing some API call unrelated. And I say, no, how on earth did you get this requirement from the clearly stated requirement? Reverse that change, reset yourself, do what I've told you to do. So if I allow it to make 3 or 4 consecutive edits, there's a very good chance, I'd say like a 1 in 3 chance that out of any 5 consecutive edits, it will make 2 wrong,
So I am on the boat of being highly against the auto acceptance, but Visual Studio does have a great feature with GitHub Copilot and a lot of other add-ons to where it's almost like when you're doing a pull request, you're able to compare the code and the changes. But the cool thing with GitHub Copilot is that you're actually able to define whether it's the whole solution or the specific active document that you're at. Mm-hmm. Once it makes the changes, it'll open up all the files that have changes, giving you the green,
like a diff. They're using
and the red,
the git diff tools.
Yeah. And then if you don't like it, you can literally just say reject and it brings it back. But if you want to try to test it before you accept it into your code base, you can compile it and run it. before you even accept the changes. And then if you like it, you can accept it. So it's almost like auto accepting, but it's giving you like a backup method to just try again with something else. Because I've ran into problems where, if I've told it, okay, revert my changes, it causes bigger problems because it doesn't actually revert your changes if you tell AI to do it.
This is actually one thing I've been a big proponent of a lot of these tools for a while, and I migrated from Cursor's IDE to Claude. And one of the biggest features that I really found that Claude, the CLI, lacks in comparison with Cursor is it's not actually leveraging an underlying Git versioning system to revert its changes. Cursor has this beautiful principle that any changes it commits prior to any change that it makes. So when it rolls back, it's not rolling back utilizing some fumbling LLM memory. It's rolling back using a Git tree, which is wonderful. Of course, I prefer that. But Claude goes, and just stumbles back to where it was, often, making erroneous edits. It's terrible.
The only Git operation I allow Claude to do locally is a commit when I tell it to.
Yeah.
All Git ops are mine. All GitHub ops are mine. Period.
Certainly.
And some people like to just spawn up a bunch of sub agents, give it a big requirements document, and let it go. That's great, but that's what causes me to come back and spend not only a lot of time reviewing code that I know is going to have problems, but it'll often take a requirement that I have, and based on its training, say, well, other apps like this have these features and these features, so it will start writing those features. They're related, but I don't want them.
Because it's a maintainability
I work in small
crisis.
chunks. I create my own branches for everything, so I always know I can get rolled back anything significant. If it's a stupid little thing, I'll just do it right on main and have it commit. But
Yeah, for a long time. Oh, we got a question over here.
YOLO mode. Oh, I think on the YOLO mode, like for letting Claude or whatever agent do whatever you want, like we found it useful if you really commit to TDD and if you really commit to TDD and have it write the test for you first, you got to review the test, but then say, tell it how to run your tests and, write all the code that's going to pass these tests. Here's how you run the test and then let it go. The YOLO mode.
Are you hand rolling your tests, or are you telling it to write the tests?
We're telling it to write its tests, and that part we're in the middle, right? We're definitely checking its output. Did it get the coverage we wanted for the requirements we gave it?
Yeah.
But after that, if your tests are good,
then you win. Yeah.
Then you can tell. Then you can tell the agent to go YOLO.
I actually was having a conversation with one of my other developers yesterday, and we were kind of joking around, and I was saying, like, is it even test-driven development anymore? Is it even rapid prototyping? Because I feel like those two concepts have become so fundamental that I don't know how you'd program without them. There's nothing other than that, in my opinion now. It's like, I feel like you write the tests, and then like you say, you just let the LLM free on the tests, and then you review, and you're rapid prototyping everything, because the cost of not doing that is orders of magnitude higher. The only situations where I found, and I'm curious to the room if anybody else has had a similar sentiment, the only two situations that I've found I'm doing a lot of hand rolling are auth and DevOps. Those are the two situations where I find I'm like, I have to get into the weeds and really look at stuff and be like, what are we doing? Why is this breaking? Auth I find is a problem it doesn't know much about. But
Auth has been debated by existence.
Yeah, it always. Oh, and one more actually, package management. It doesn't understand package management. I think there's actually a really excellent opportunity for someone to come in and write a tool that maybe even a paid service tool that's just an expert on package management. And I think that you could get that done with a couple of senior professionals, like maybe Microsoft has those people. What are they called? The people that Microsoft certifies. They're like, yeah. You probably could get someone like that for .NET, and then someone similar in like the Java domain. Like for each domain, find an absolute expert that just has this as back of the hand knowledge, and then maybe ingest a lot of really curate, write some data pipelines to scrape and curate known good projects only on branches that ever got pushed to production. And then maybe you could really build a package dependency analyzer that doesn't suck. And that would be super good. Because especially in the wild west of Conda, good luck, or pip, good luck. trying to get stuff to work the first time or .NET. I think there's a lot of versioning and packaging problems where I find the LLM is just stumbling until it happens upon something functional.
So I guess maybe you can describe it better, because like in my experience working with .NET Package Manager on like NPM repos, it seems to be fine. And when it goes to get the context of like my project, it checks the package file and it gets the appropriate information. So I guess where's the faults?
Well, we're using a lot of this comes down to Tim's system, which is Lazy Magic, and because it's using Maui hybrid apps, and like he's got a lot of integrations, and I think it scales with the number of integrations, and the less beaten the path you're on, the more challenging I think it becomes. Like he's using a lot of the edge features, like consolidated package management, like directory.pop, stuff like that, and I think like the LLM is really resistant because it hallucinates based on volume, right? So like when I was looking at picking up a .NET position, they were all doing MCP, like ancient tech, And so I think like the package versioning, everybody wants to manage package versions in the CS proj for a project, right? So the second you start implementing directory.props, like even though central package management is like best practice according to Microsoft, it's not the newest best practice, and thereby the LLM hallucinates and constantly wants to put package versions in the CS proj, even though that's just an anti-pattern, right? Like you could take one glance at my system, you see a directory.props. Like if I had a junior dev and they were putting packages in the CS proj, I'd be like, do you not know how to Google? I'd be like, it says directory.props. That means you're using central package management. And you can literally see it says true. But to an LLM, I don't think it's able to easily connect. It's not doing anything logically. It's a token predictor. Like there's no, like, and it might, there are steps in its decision making nowadays where it's like, it's working through like ensemble trees and stuff like that, where it kind of is simulating decision making, but it's really a bunch of token predictors pretending to be aware of context rather than, having like it's not operating heuristically,
I would hope that a company doesn't give an intern or like junior dev access to like the repos or like to the package component, because normally a company would just use like DevOps and then you just use like a bunch of built workflows and then you inject everything from there, and then your senior DevOps is basically managing what repos are injected from that point. So
yeah,
I would hope that the company.
That sounds like a very structured company. Everywhere I've worked has been burning down since. It's usually like, oh, your code didn't work? Oh, I'll go fix it, like, oh, and while you're there, also get this other thing working. That's not even in the same language. Oh, too bad. I once, I might give you a quick story on that. It's fun. So I got hired as a data pipeline engineer for Citibank. And Citibank said, hey, we want you to write NIME workflows that will transform Excel sheets and perform all the transforms these Excel sheets are doing. Okay, well NIME is onto, meaning that like the entire table needs to be populated. It's not designed to have, like a spreadsheet is a very unique thing in that you can have all of these like spot computations, right? So I build this massive extension for them in NIME to get this all working, like after several months of dev. I'm like, the tool just doesn't want to do this. I can make it do it. It's not supposed to do it. Write them this big extension, and right at the end of the project, it all works, right? And they're like, just kidding, we want to do it in Python. So then we rip it all out, and we got one node, and we're running it in a Python executable. I didn't know Python. I was like, I'll figure it out, whatever. Okay. Oh, they didn't have local debugging working either, right? So they were round-tripping the server every time, and they would just see, if it explodes, it explodes.
Sounds like HP 3000. I was like in the Minnesota once, and they're saying, we didn't have AI back then. To ask like, what's this in COBOL or whatever?
Yeah. Well, I think that's actually out of all, and again, I'll open this up to the room. I think this is the most impactful and the highest utility impact of AI to development in the recent memory is it is absolutely the most amazing dynamic manual. Like when compared with prior to AI, I'd have 17 tabs open on the language spec, and I'd be control F'ing, and it was this horrible process of Like how much reading do I have to do to like text spikes were way heavier before AI. And now I feel like there's a consequence to AI, which is that you end up writing it maybe 4 times instead of 3 times because you let the AI write it once, realize it didn't do what you wanted, and then you have to write it yourself, right? But I feel like the amount of just digging in a language spec that used to happen was horrendous. Does anyone else have any antidotes they'd like to share, or should we wrap it up there? Very good. Thanks for all coming. Very fun. Good discussions.